Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today for this demonstration of the new and re-implemented Stellar Cyber Coverage Analyzer app. This is a re-implementation of a previous iteration of this application. You will find that it's very similar to the old version. It is more performant and does have a few more features. My name is Tim Onderhey, and I'm a member of the CSE team here at Stellar Cyber. The purpose of this application is to map stellar detections coverage to the MITRE framework, and also to model how adding or removing data sources affects that coverage. This is very useful for cyber insurance and also for determining the best proverbial bang for your buck in terms of which data sources you might consider adding to your infrastructure or stellar deployment. Thanks very much to Will Thales for the original version of this application on which this was based. The first question is, where does this live? You can see the URL at the top of the page here. It is https://analyzer-dev.scze-tools.com:5443. Without any further ado, let's tear into this. When you first connect to the application, you'll see that there is no server defined. We must define a server. And to connect to a server, we need the host, the username, and an API key. I will assume for the purposes of this demonstration that you already have an API key. If you don't have one or don't know how to generate one, please refer to the documentation. The host that we're going to connect to here is poc.stellarcyber.cloud, the username and the API key. Once we've pasted that in, we can click the test button and we'll see that the test is successful. Now we just click add and the app will connect to the server. You then choose your tenant, or you just leave the default selection of all tenants. You choose a range for the alerts to load in. This app will analyze the coverage provided by the alerts in the given time range. The next, we simply click execute, and our app has fully loaded. Notice this area at the top here. These items in orange are the data sources currently configured in the system. The items in white down below here, these are the custom alerts that are defined in the system, which provide additional MITRE coverage, or may provide additional MITRE coverage, depending on how they are configured. Notice here that there are metrics generated. This will tell you how many percentage of MITRE tactics and techniques are covered, and also the amount of coverage provided by the alerts. And we see a little bit of information about them here. Next, you'll notice here on the left-hand side, we have this data source recommendations. The application calculates which are the data sources which provide the most amount of MITRE coverage. So let's just choose the top item here, G Suite. You click on G Suite here, and notice it's added up top here in green. We can dynamically add and remove data sources from this list. We can also add them up here from this area where it says add new data source, and choose from the dropdown. Notice that once we added the G Suite data source, we have this little delta arrow and statistic added here. This shows that by adding this, we got 2.4% additional techniques coverage, 1.7 additional alert types coverage. We can remove that, and it reverts back to the original state. We can also remove these data sources from the list. Looks like some of these don't really provide much additional coverage. There we go. Notice how this has dropped to 80.7%. We can revert this list of data sources up here back to its original state by clicking on this reset button here. Also note that Under this metrics view here, these statistics can be displayed as a percentage of tactics and techniques that Stellar provides, or the percentage of tactics and techniques across the entire MITRE framework. So the number can drop considerably if you switch it over to percentage of the MITRE framework. That's because the Stellar Cyber product only covers a certain percentage of that framework. And frankly, it is not possible for it to get to 100% of the MITRE framework. We can collapse the metrics section here just by clicking on the summary here. And we'll move on to the coverage tables. These are simply breakdowns of tactics, techniques, and alert types. This shows whether the coverage is available for a given tactic, whether it is actually covered by one of our selected data sources, whether it is covered by one of the custom data sources, and whether an alert has actually been triggered in the time frame. As we have 100% coverage of tactics, it does not recommend any data sources for this. Probably more interestingly, we move over to the techniques tab, where we see very much the same thing, where we see it by technique. We also see recommended data sources here, where we can add them to the list up top if we so desire. These tables can also be sorted and you can filter them. Lastly, we have the alert types table. This shows all the alert types covered by the system, whether they've been triggered, whether they're actually covered, and by the covered means covered by the data sources up above, and whether or not they are custom. Also, it shows any recommended data sources if there are any for the given alert type. Let's collapse this section and then move on to recommended data sources. So this just simply recommends the unused data sources within the system, data sources which have not been added up here, and what the specific amount of coverage you would get in terms of additional tactics or techniques. So in this case, the AWS CloudWatch covers a single tactic. By adding it, you won't gain any additional tactics. It covers 2 total techniques. But if we added them, we would get 2 additional techniques in terms of coverage. And same also for the alert types. Collapse that section. Now we'll move on to the MITRE ATT&CK navigator. There are these 3 sections here: existing and added data source coverage, added data source coverage, and existing data source coverage. By expanding these, we get a view of the MITRE ATT&CK navigator. I shall just click on this to open this in a new tab so we can see it a little better here. This shows the coverage from up above here for both those that you've added, the existing data sources, and the custom alerts that are here. It's a live view of what's up here. If you modify what's up above here by adding a data source, this will refresh automatically. Though if it's open in a new tab, that will not refresh automatically. You'll notice in here, there's much of this is black, which is fine. If you hover over one of these that is green or yellow, you'll see that we list the data sources that provide this coverage and also the custom detections that provide this coverage as well. The added data source coverage view here shows only those data sources that have been added up above, the ones that are in green. So if we remove those, we'll see that the amount of coverage will diminish down to pretty much nothing. The reason we provide these views is so that you can differentiate between the state of the system as it currently exists, so you can see only the additional coverage that you gain. And of course, the existing data source coverage shows only those items that are here in orange or in white. We also have the raw data source JSON. This is just a representation of all of our data sources. One last thing that we can do here is download a report by clicking on this download report button in the upper right-hand corner. If we click on that, it should take 10-ish seconds to generate a report. There we go. That has downloaded a zip file, which if we expand it, we'll see a number of files within here. So you notice what we have here is a view of the attack navigator. There's 3 different views that the UI provides. We also have an XLSX file, and we'll see pretty much all the information that's contained in the application, with the exception of those MITRE navigator reports. So you can see the metrics, the tactics, techniques, and alert types coverage, and also the recommended data sources. This could be fairly useful for insurance companies or anything you want. There are also CSV files which break down the data contained in those tabs within the Excel spreadsheet, so they could be used programmatically if so desired. One particular need that's arisen is, how do I connect my coverage analyzer to a Stellar environment that's only accessible via VPN? For that, we provide a Docker Compose project, which is available here on GitHub at this URL. To run it, you first need to install Docker locally, and then you just need to clone the repository to your local computer, cd into it, and cd into the prod directory. And now just run the script .sh. And it will pull down the Docker images that have been pre-compiled, and it will pull them down from GitHub, and we'll run them locally. We can see that the project has been started. If we go into the Docker dashboard, we can see the app running locally with 2 containers, one for Nginx and one for the server. Simply connect to localhost colon 8502 on HTTP, not HTTPS. That concludes our demo for today. Thank you very much for watching.